Cathy Gillespie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's great to have you on. You are in Christchurch, New Zealand. Your company, LikeMinded Learning. I'd love if we could just start off and have you share, just so that everybody kind of has a sense of, how big is the company, team, revenue, number of clients per year, anything that you can share, just to help people kind of get a sense of where you are today.
Yeah. So probably the first thing is what we do. That would be helpful. Just now, we work with people who need a learning outcome. So they might have a concept or an idea, and they need to say, "I need to get my course out online or in a classroom," and we fit in anywhere along that spectrum as to helping them with learning management systems. My special area is about learning design and development and creating really good learning experience that aren't just put it up online, is or not online learning. So I've come from there from a passion of training. I actually started off as a forensic scientist, can you believe? And it does make sense, my journey, because I started to teach there, gone through Microsoft instructing, but I've broadened now to the adult education thinking. So I've worked in a range of different places. When I came to New Zealand in 2002, I was having my last child then anyway, so it was a bit of a change.
And where did you come from? Just so everybody knows, where were you coming
yes,
from?
the UK accent. So I'm from England. Came here. Our oldest was 9, and we had about 3 years to play with. And we were living in London. It's not a good place, when you've got children, to be able to try to do everything. So we just decided to get on a plane. We had no job, no house, 2 children, one on the way, and we just came here to see what it was like. But when we came here, obviously I did go for a job even though I was pregnant, and said, "Oh, I'd love a job, but I need 3 months off." And they said, "Can you start on Friday?" So spectacular for that. But we moved really just for a quality of life, because my office was 100 miles away from my house. When I was in London, the office was in Birmingham. With a family, your perspective changes. And so that's when we came out here. When I came here, I did get into facilitating and training, but gone more into the course design development. Did some great training back in the UK with what is used to be called the Training Institute, or TAP. So again, those in the UK will know that. Can't sell that well enough. It's the course. I did. So did something in 1998, so yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you started LikeMinded Learning in January of 2014. Take us back to what you were doing just before, and then why did you start the business?
Okay. So I was working in the learning industry, so I was doing kind of what I'm doing now. But to be honest, there were some things that didn't align with my core values and needs. And also we had the opportunity, because we'd had the Christchurch earthquake, and there was a learning legacy project. So I left to manage that for 20 hours a week. And it's like, that's never happened. I thought it was ideal to take a step back, but just change, because I wanted to move myself out of a situation that was challenging for me and take more control of it. And so I went out to be a project manager. But what's happened is the clients have come to me, and it's like it was me they wanted to work with. And the business, I always call myself an accidental business owner. So I worked for a year as just more like a contractor. And then someone else who was in a similar position was ready to move as well. So we then came together as LikeMinded Learning, with the purpose of making sure that the work environment, wasn't one that created the things that I hated, previously, that looked after people. So it came together to do what we loved, but do it in a way that we liked. So that was, so I'd done it for sort of a year from 2014 before my business partner joined me. And what he brought was another angle to the business. So I'm not technical. So he's brought the technical expertise combined with my educational expertise.
So I want to get into kind of the structure with your partner and maybe some learnings or experiences on that. Before you do that, I just want to rewind and take us back to the question of kind of size, scope of the business today. How many people, number of clients, anything you can kind of share just to help us get a sense of where you are today.
So we're only full-time employees. We have a bank of contractors because of our work being project work goes up and down.
Yep.
So we sit at 6 at the moment. We've sat between 6 and 8. We have some strategic plans to be increasing that, like doubling that over the next few years. But neither of us are looking, as I say, to be some big global take over the world. We're enjoying what we do, and we realize that with growth that comes different responsibilities. And I have to recognize because my business partner is very different to me in terms of introvert, extrovert, risk taker, not. I have to respect that. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the time, we've been together for sort of nearly 9 years now, is learning how to work with somebody who's very different to me, and giving them space and time so that they can come on the journey without me railroading it.
Right. I want to ask you about that. The one thing it'd be helpful is, so 6 full-time, a bunch of contractors you bring into projects, right?
Yep.
Ebb and flow in terms of business and pipeline. How many clients or how many projects do you typically take on per year?
Oh, well, we've got probably, I would say, about 20 to 25 active clients at the moment.
Okay.
But for a small company, the most important thing to realize is we're hard hitters. For, again, New Zealand is a bit different, but we do tertiary. So we work with organisations like the universities, the industry training organisations. So they're national for New Zealand.
Right.
We've got a couple of clients over in Australia. We work for people like, I know I can say because we've done the work and it's on our case studies, like Toyota, like the Health Board. So often people come in and say, oh, look, we're a huge organisation. We've got 80 people, 100 people. It's like, my pitch is, for this project, you need 3 people dedicated to this project who know their stuff inside out. I'm going to give you the best people on the seat, and those 3 people will be dedicated to you for the project. You don't need 80 people.
Right.
80 people won't get this done efficiently. So we tie that very closely into a strong process, depending on what we're doing, because we show them who needs to be working on it at what point and why it's done.
You're hitting on something there, Cathy. I think that's really important, that oftentimes, earlier stage consultants or very small firms don't pay enough attention to, which is that being small, being nimble can in fact be a significant advantage in comparison to larger firms, but you need to communicate that, right? So I think your example right now of, hey, you only need 3 people. You don't need 20, you don't need 80, you don't have to pay for all that overhead. Here's why, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to, it's not about more, it's about fewer, but better, right? Value over volume.
Not quantity.
Right. So that's fantastic. Take me to the partnership for a moment. Or you brought on a partner, you said, who's quite different from you. How is, I think you said earlier, how is he different? And can you talk a little bit more about maybe how you've dealt with some of those differences going forward in a bit more detail?
The way I've dealt with that is to take on coaching and mentoring for myself. That's one of the first important things, because I need to recognize that, I need to talk the language that brings him along, not forces him along. So
can you offer an example? Sorry to interrupt, but could you offer an example, like maybe how was this showing up beforehand? What would have been something that maybe happened that caused a bit of, your heads butting or disagreement or not seeing things the same way? How would that kind of show up in work?
So I think that staffing is a big one that was with us, because taking somebody else on, like I would say, look, we need somebody else to do this, and it's like, oh, that's another overhead, and it's like, it's a hard conversation to have, but it's like you are showing him the figures. So recently we're doing a lot of strategic work for a 10-year plan, and the difference is that I'm sitting there thinking big picture, 10 years, I will want to be extricating myself out of being a key person in the business.
Right.
But he can see to 2 years, not 10. And it's like, as long as he's more money driven than my focus is more on the well-being. And that's different, because he could sometimes misinterpret that as being not being as interested in the product. Right. But for me, it's just different. The product is, I love what I do, and I do what I love, as it says on my LinkedIn. Yeah. But so if I wanted to take on staff, it's a bigger risk for him, and he would hesitate. If I wanted to take on a consultant to help us in an area that we don't know, strategic, and I take a mentor, he doesn't. And those conversations where we talk about, you know, how are we going to become better business people? I'm more ready to pay for people to bring them in and learn, whereas he's more hesitant with that, partly for the cost. But what I've done to alleviate that is write out the 10-year plan, do the calculations on percentage of, you know, chargeable income people can do, pay estimated, overheads estimated, and show him that bringing on more people actually ends up with more profit. But more importantly, because it's not driven by the money, it's like, isn't it better to go home with a smaller dividend if needs be, and have a life and your health, and not have burnout?
Yeah.
Because what we take, you know, we take good income, we have a salary, and then we have the dividends. Obviously, that's how it works. But I think the idea is balancing up what's important. So I would talk about the fact that I now work 4 days a week, because I have my Wednesdays off, which is lovely. It's hard for him to visualize that at the moment.
Right. Right.
And but what I said is, would you not be better to go away with, pick a number out of the air, $5,000 less, but always be able to finish it, you know, in a working week? Because we don't let our staff work 50, 60 hours a week. That's one of our core things,
Right.
is looking at them. But, you know, what we need is if making a bigger income is reliant on the staff being resourced for 50 to 60 hours a week, that is against our core values and
Sure.
what we want to set. So it's like, I do the calculations based on our staff working at most of them around about 80% chargeable work. And then I could show him some evidence-based. That's what I get from my
Right. Does that
friends.
work for you? Like when you do the forecasting, the calculation, so you kind of get your case, you sit down. I know you mentioned your ages are different. I believe you said he's younger than you are by
Yes.
15 years, or give or take, or so.
Yeah, he's got children dependents. I don't. They've all gone.
Right. Okay. So you're in different seasons of life. What I'm wondering is, so, you know, you're sounds kind of level-headed, methodical, organized. You know, you're making the business case of why this is actually beneficial for us to do X. How does that work? Have you found that is enough to get you both aligned, or have you found maybe something else is still required? And I'm asking really because I think there's probably a lot of people who are either in a partnership or they're thinking about a partnership, and hearing what you've experienced could potentially help them to avoid mistakes or to fix something that, you know, that needs to be fixed right now.
I think my best advice is it's working now because I'm bringing in independent. The problem is that sometimes if somebody else says something, even if it's the same as what I said, it can be heard differently.
Sure.
So we've actually just months or so ago employed a strategic consultant to come in and just talk us through, you know, because as I said, we're both accidental business owners. We haven't gone through that, you know, methodical training. I get training for the Women in Leadership, Australia and New Zealand, and it's just amazing training. I need to find the equivalent for, you know, for guys or combined, because
Sure.
they will take men. But the thing is, it's bringing someone independent in to put that case forward. So this year we've had a strategic session. It's kicked us back in, and he's actually, you know, he's changing the way he works to try to get himself more out of the business and on the business. Learning that lesson is the most important thing. How you get there is, do you have the skills to do it yourself, or do you need someone else to help you? And we drive how much or how little they help. We're not saying, come in, tell me how to run my business. We're saying, what am I missing? What don't I know? So it's coaching.
Yeah.
And so getting coached. So we've had that session. We've got some plans. So that's why we've done our 10 years and our calculations. Yeah. And then we'll have in February, we do a strategic day. And this is the first year we're likely to bring a facilitator in. We've done it ourselves. And my point is, we do it, but we don't hold ourselves accountable. Having someone to hold you accountable is the thing. So we're going towards sort of advisor or advisory board. Yeah. And hopefully that's the advice I'd say.
That's fantastic. I mean, the fact that you're not only just thinking about this and planning yourself, but you're open to getting outside counsel, advice, expertise, coaching, support. I mean, you know, we say this all the time, and we do this ourselves. I mean, we run a coaching program for consultants and consulting firms, but we ourselves, as founders and entrepreneurs, you know, invest in our own coaching, our own mentoring, because if you look around you, the most successful people in any walk of life, business, right, arts, so on and so forth, there's always somebody supporting them, if not multiple people. Now, for some people that can be hard, because I know early in my career, 20 plus years ago, when I've kind of first got started my initial consulting business, the idea was, no, I'll try and do as much as I can myself. I need to save some money. I don't, I'll wait to do X or to bring somebody on until we get to that next client or to this next level of revenue, just kind of kick that can down the road. But I think once that clicks, right, and as an entrepreneur, you see the value of getting support from others, learning from those that have already been there and done that, it's really like a true accelerant for the business. I want to ask you, Cathy, about today in the business. It sounds like early on, the opportunities came kind of through your network and through your previous job and the work that you had been doing. If we talk about marketing, about lead generation, about how you build the pipeline of business today, what's working best for your firm?
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, we've been word of mouth for nearly all of that time. We don't have a marketing person, but it's on our plan for our org chart. We'll be going next year to look at marketing, business development, sales, a product owner, that sort of a role. Because what we recognize is if we do want to grow, we have to grow the different arms of our business, and we're just been delivering what we're good at, and we're not being visionary about what other revenue streams we could do. So we're looking to increase that resource, because we've mostly been word of mouth. Again, remember that the company set up because of our reputations, which is great, but that makes the company dependent on us as key personnel. So that's what we're doing. So we'll be looking for a general manager, in a few years' time to make sure that we can sit back and be owners, directors, maybe on the board. So we haven't, we put in learning management systems, and we have a relationship with a learning management system called Tutora, which is based on Moodle. And they...
You said Noodle?
Moodle, Moodle.
Oh, Moodle. No, I don't know Moodle.
Yeah.
I thought you said Noodle.
No, Noodle sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
Sounds like a bit of a mess, though, doesn't it? Squiggles. Right, it's just a learning platform for us. But we're partners.
So you have some partnerships in place from those that could refer you business.
So the two things there is, one, we get a passive income for the people that we have. We get a little cut of that. But the most important thing is that they're looking at us as a company and saying, why are these people moving from this vendor to this vendor? Oh, it's because their service is better. It's because they look after their people. So the core things that we're trying to do to make a difference are the actual things that are bringing in the business. So now that company, if we're in the South Island, most of the time will recommend us if they get an inquiry through their website. Yeah. So we do LinkedIn as well, but not much, not very well.
Right. Okay, so mainly kind of through your network. I mean, hitting on the partnerships is key. We see a lot of consultants doing that as well. When you talk about referrals, it's more common for people to say, referrals in a passive manner, meaning they do good work. People talk about them, they make introductions, they get that referral business. But sometimes, and I'd say in many cases, it may not be apparent, but there's something that company does inside of their process, their system, how they deliver work, that actually is a key factor in getting referrals. And I'm wondering, is there anything that you might be doing in terms of asking for referrals, in terms of just your onboarding, your offboarding, events, anything at all that you might be doing that you feel it's not only about doing good work, that's a given, but there's something else that we do as part of our process that actually probably helps us to generate referrals? Does that exist or not really?
Well, obviously, with networking and meeting people there, that's very productive, because we did have a client recently who was interested to talk to us. We've never quite got over the line with them, but they've referred us to another person, and they haven't even worked with us. But they said, oh, you need to go and talk to them. So in that communication and the way we're working with a client, encouraging them or showing them that we care about them as a business before we do about the income, and the product. But being a B Corp certified, again, I'm not sure how many people know about that. It's a recognizing that doing business for good. So we've been accredited for that. And it's an accreditation, and this is how we sell ourselves when we do a proposal, is it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And so what we encourage people is just saying, look, if you want to check us, we've got an independent accreditation that says we look after our clients, we make sure they're right, we look after our workers, we look after the community. So we take part in the community and use some of our profits for that. And we look after the environment as best we can. We're not a product with service, but there are still things we can do.
Right.
And then we have open and transparent governance. So what we have is an independent accreditation that these guys are actually doing what they say they're doing. They're not just a marketing byline. And so having that independent, because people will look at the B Corp directory for another B Corp company. And obviously I'm on the committee, for the local thing. So I'm meeting local businesses.
Yeah.
Selling from the point of view of we're actually ethical, work with integrity. And nowadays you'll find that people are rating that a lot higher. But what you say, you hear all this thing about greenwashing, it's fine to say you've got a tick for this, but going through the B Corp accreditation process is not easy, but it's so worth it. And I want it to not be easy because it's really valid. If you get it, you know that you're doing the right thing. And what happened, I think, just to get on that track is we were doing it anyway. And then I went to a presentation and said, this is our framework. And this framework can be used for me to do what I want to do better.
Right.
And it's what I always say about the foundations right. I think, I use this analogy. It's like we water the plant. We don't do anything to the flowers to make them come out. So what we're doing is we're getting our foundations of how we work and what we do and processes all in place. And then the work comes.
Right.
It's not active to go at the moment. We're not actively chasing the work, although we do have that in the plan to do more of that.
I'm wondering what percentage of your time right now, Cathy, is spent actually delivering work, being directly involved in the client engagements as opposed to business development and I know you said not really marketing, but let's say networking. So what percentage is working in the business versus working on the business right now?
I can give you the exact percentage if I look that up because we manage it. So I'm theoretically down at the moment. I work only 4 days a week, so I have my Wednesdays to myself. But of the time that I work, I'm meant to do around about 40%, for our money calculations. In practice, I'm probably doing more like 30 because I do currently wear a lot of hats, but I'm actually getting rid of them. We're sending some of those hats off to a jumble sale. Because my business partner is supposed to be about 50% in the business, 50% on, but he's currently not got the hands and he's high. So we look at that as a problem as well, because if he's doing 80% charge, well, that's not a good thing because it's 30% that he should be spending to grow the business. And for me, as things change, I do HR, I do some of the invoicing stuff. We've got plans. Again, probably a good tip and a hint I think that somebody gave to me was write down absolutely everything you do in your business from start to finish. So we have everything, including watering the plants, buying the toilet paper, doing the BD. And then we put who's the director that's in charge of that, and we put who's currently leading it. And our task as we change and evolve our organization structure is to make sure that the two Hamish and myself, the two directors, are not in that leading it. Somebody else needs to be leading it because somebody else is going to come in and it's like, well, why is Hamish and Cathy the most, why are they key personnel? Because actually learning technology is led by this person and they have a team of 3 learning content. So the task for me was set by one of my mentors, really. And you could just write everything that you do on a daily basis down and just look at why are you doing it? So that's why I moved buying the toilet paper. I think
that's a really solid advice. One question that people have who are in similar situations are moving towards that is you as a co-founder or start the business but your key your knowledge, your expertise is initially what clients were seeking. What lessons did you learn or what advice would you have for somebody who wants to shift out of doing all the delivery and bringing on others that can actually start to do the work?
I think, remember, it's a long-term, vision, because training, you could buy somebody in who's got skills, but they're still going to need to learn your way. So if it's about, how did I get to this position? I've morphed into this position, or I've chosen to be driven, I've driven myself. Because if what frustrates me is when I'm a year down the line and we still haven't taken on a new person when that person could now have a year of experience. So I think that's the thing. And, again, money is a driver. We have the money in the business. It just means that we have to take away less at the end of the day. But if we had started today to build someone up, say, as a help desk analyst, in 6 months' time, 12 months' time, they're going to be operating fully in that role. And then there's less for everyone else to do, or even the middle people. So you've got we have a technology lead, and we have down here would be the help desk analyst. But in the middle, there are people. If that help desk analyst can take work off the middle people will have space to learn to take the work off the higher, sort of lead role. And that's the cascade. I think it's looking at that big picture. It's not looking at the money and saying, you haven't got the money for a help desk analyst. It's like, what are the other non-money benefits? Because the point is, you can go home at the end of the day after your 7.5-hour day and watch the TV and go to the football and do whatever. If you're going home and picking up the work, something's still wrong there, which is why I manage, the amount of hours people put in. But I think it's about don't faff around, don't wait, because if you want someone needs to be trained, the longer you talk about it, the longer before they'll be productive. Yeah. But if you do the maths, you feel braver about that.
No, I agree. I think that's very solid advice. I often share with people, the sooner that you start, if there's something that is going to benefit you, if it's, inside you feel it's what you need to do, most often, right? Human nature, our own minds are what hold us back. It's not external factors. It's our own internal kind of mindset. And the sooner that we start, the sooner that we're going to start seeing the results that we want, right? To what you're saying. So I think that's really solid advice.
With patience as well, because it's not going to happen overnight.
No, exactly. This is not an overnight get rich quick type of business. It's about relationships and, internal, external. Usually good things do take time, right? But again, the sooner you begin, the sooner you start to see the benefits of that work. I'm wondering, Cathy, when you kind of think about challenges that you've overcome challenges, maybe even one challenge recently that you as a business owner, as a company, have dealt with, what stands out for you? What's been maybe something that was a big challenge, you had to kind of wrestle with it, but it was a pretty big deal, and you ended up overcoming it?
I think, it's probably, I'll be a bit more general because it's about employing the right people. A small company particularly, there's a big impact on it. And so we've had a reasonable turnover of people because the employment law, unfortunately, is much more in favour of the employee. And if we're finding that they're not quite filling the role or what have you, but I think it's honesty, openness, transparency, and, setting those expectations for people. So we have what we call, in New Zealand, we have a WAF, which makes it's a warrant of fitness. It's like an MOT for those in UK. I don't know what you do on your car to check that it's fit for purpose. Right. So I don't do appraisals. Every second month, I meet individually one-on-one with people and say, how's this relationship between like-minded learning and you and us? And so we actually address, I am very much a fan of Tom Rath. I don't know whether you know him, the well-being. So again, he has 5 areas of health, which is physical, financial, social, community, and something else just off the top of my head. But I ask them questions because it's like, when I say, it's like, are you in the right place for your career? You don't have to be CEO, but are you on a pathway that's working for you, or are you struggling? Because what part of that does like-minded have a responsibility for? Are we not giving you the right projects? If you tell me I really want to be a barista, why are you working for a learning company? So I need to be able to help you get to the place you want to be, irrespective of how it means for like-minded. I don't believe in what I call golden handcuffs at all. And if I ask them a question financially, are you waking up in the middle of the night worrying about money? Is not a question of like, oh, well, we'll just throw more money and pay you. It's like, it ties in with everything else. But it's like, if you want your 5th Ferrari, then that's not a like-minded problem. If we're not paying you the living wage, then that's our problem, and I need to do something about that. So it's about looking at those 5 areas. And say it's well worth reading Tom Rath's Wellbeing book, because it's been my guiding light almost in my own life. It's like I have to be balanced in all of those things to be in a healthy space. So I operate that for my staff appraisal, for want of a better word, but our WAF. So that's been good, but it's meant that we're very transparent and we're really open, and conversations like this isn't suitable for you within the realms of employee law. But
Right.
I remember the biggest win for me was I had a conversation with somebody who really wasn't, working in that space. And it's like, look, you've either got to take it on and decide you're going to get to this milestone, or what's the outcome. And so we had the conversation and she decided to resign. And as she left the meeting, when she decided to resign, she said, "You're still the best boss I've ever had." It's like, we've just talked about it and you've just have no job. But, it didn't affect the relationship because it was done openly. And that to me is the authenticity of what I want to be doing
Yeah.
with my staff is, if you don't want to be here, I don't want you to have to be here. Either I can give you stuff that makes you work better and more productively, which is in my interest. If I can't achieve that with my business lens on, then I need to help you to move on so I can put someone in on that seat who does work with us. So again, people, I hate cloud, I hate non-transparency, I like the honesty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you think about your company in total, your team, your systems, your processes, what would you say is your secret sauce? What stands out to you as this is what we do that is different, or this is what contributes or has the biggest impact and connection to our success as a company?
Selling ourselves
And
from an ethics. I'm sorry.
no, I was
Go ahead.
gonna add one thing, but I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But just in terms of the more specific that you can be. I know sometimes people say like it's our people. Well, great, right? I mean, a lot of people say that, but I think you said ethics, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit more about that and as
So to
specific as
me,
you
it's
can.
like selling that as a difference, because I don't care what anybody says. There are a lot of business out there that don't run by ethics. Run the B Corp mantra is balancing profit and purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly it. Our purpose is to do business in a good, healthy, ethical, integral way.
Right.
So that's what we do. So in our proposals, we'll put being B Corp really matters to us, and it will often put this is how we work with you rather than what. So people sometimes, they struggle because they're used to being working with people who are money driven and profit driven. So when they say, "I want this $10,000 job, please," and we come back and say, "No, you don't. You need a $3,000 job now," maybe in 3 years' time, they look and they say, "Aren't you doing yourself out of business?" It's the same with we do capability training. We train internal staff to do what we do. And
Mm.
people look and think, "Well, hang on, you're doing yourself out of a job." I said, "No, we're not, because we're working with them in a really transparent way. We understand that money is important to them. And while they're doing that one, we're away doing the next newest change in the industry or next thing. And they're going to come to us to ask us when they're ready to upgrade or do something different."
Yeah.
So it's about sitting back and realizing that it's not about locking in every dollar every time. And
Mm.
this is where I don't like, we give our clients all source material. We don't tie them in. They can close relationships at any time.
Let me ask you on that, because to me that comes across as really embracing a long-term mindset, right? So you're not looking to maximize short-term revenue or short-term profits. You're investing into long-term relationships, right, for the benefit. But you need to be comfortable knowing that you're potentially today making less because you're okay making more over the long term. And I'm wondering, do you view that differently? But also what I'm wondering is you say that today with 6 full-time people, a bunch of contractors, you're established. Is this how you also were operating and able to operate in the early days of the business? Because oftentimes people have the concern of, well, like, I need to generate money and cash flow to grow this thing. And so they don't necessarily have the in their mind the time or the ability to maybe take less now, and be able to get more later on. So I'm wondering, how do you view that? Because some people might be kind of wrestling with that right now.
Well, I would say that that's a slight difference as well. Where you did the season in the life, that I like that phrase, because obviously, I don't now have a mortgage and the children I've mostly paid off things, they keep coming back. But then with a business partner who's, you know, just got children going into the high school levels and things like that, and still moving house and still got mortgage, I have to understand that, because often my comment is, well, how much is how much? You know, it's like, look, you get a good market rate salary for the job, and we take dividends if the business does well. It's only the dividends that change for us. But someone's saying, oh, everybody else is getting like, you know, 200,000, 300,000, whatever. It's like, how much do you need to feed yourself, clothe yourself, pay for your house, pay for your car? You know, I think that's the problem. Is it's like, no, if we go away with that amount, if you went away with $10,000 less, that's, you know, I do, that's $20,000 we can spend on growing the business or doing something different or investing in something. So I think the first measure is, what's my driver? Is my driver earning $3 million a year? Or is my driver to be happy as a person for me and my family? So I think a business owner has to question that. If their driver is purely to make as much money as possible, it's going to be really hard for them to manage their ethics and values and look after everybody in the process, because we have to share that. We have to share the good fortune of the company, which is why when we do, you know, at the end of the day, everyone, very rarely has anybody not had a bonus unless they've been just joined us. So there are things we do pay market rate. We sell that. We don't pay the highest level that a company can, because one, I don't believe in buying people. If their driver is money, I'd rather you sell me on your passion and I'll pay you well. So it's about the hiring process is important to get the people who are actually going to be committed to doing a good quality job. But we don't pay the highest, but we only have a 37.5-hour week. They have 24 days holiday because we give them between Christmas and New Year is 3 days from us. You know, they don't have to. I hate it when people give you 2 weeks and then you have to use that as your annual leave. You have to use it on this week. It's like, then it's not choice. You know, we have a health. We don't have health insurance, and you know, we don't pay that, but we pay them something small amount every year to go and do something positive towards the health. So massages, paying for football subs, things like that. So there are other benefits of it. But if I start to pay my staff more, I have to charge my clients more, not because that's what it costs us to produce the job, you know, like at the core level, but because I have to pay my staff a high level to keep them. So, you know, it's a juggling. It really is a juggling act. I think the thing is what matters most. People say, oh, they'll expect a car. Someone came to me and they sort of said, oh, you know, I've seen your job advertised. What's the package? Do I get a car? And I just went back and said, you don't need a car for this job. You know, it's like, I'm not going, you know, I know people have some of those things as their essentials, but I'm probably more simplistic than probably 90% of the people. It's like, you know, it's like, look, I can pay my bills, I can go away on holiday, I can do nice things, but I have to remember to think of that from someone else who's got a high mortgage and got children. So where's that intermediate ground? Is, you know, is a $10,000 bonus good? Is a $100,000 bonus good? Is $300,000 bonus good? If it was a 300, I mean, it's never been this high, but if it was a $300,000 bonus, if we took $50,000 off, you know, him and me, that's $100,000 to pay someone else's salary, which means every single day of that year we'll be better off, less pressured, less stressed. So it's about measuring what value means, I think, to people. And if it's just in your salary, I suspect you probably wouldn't be very like-minded. You know, that's why we have a deliberate choice of our name.
So Cathy, 2 questions before we wrap up. In 1 or 2 sentences, what would you say drives you as a business owner?
My responsibility to make sure that the generations coming up don't have the horrible parts of working their way up through a business. I want to make it so there's a good environment for learning. It's interesting. You spend too long at work to not enjoy the day. So if you're dreading Monday, I want people to not dread Monday.
Yeah, there we go. I think that's it, right? I want people not to dread Monday, helping people not to dread Monday.
There you go.
Cathy,
a t-shirt made up like that.
Exactly, yeah, 100%. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast and for sharing a bit of your journey, your story. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you, about your company, the work that you all do. Where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I would suggest that if you connect with us on both LinkedIn, my name and the company name, so Cathy Gillespie, feel free to make a connection. It's Like-Minded Learning, so we post every week with case studies and things that we're doing. That's one way. I'm more than happy for if people connect through that, that's probably the easiest way, and then we can share emails. I don't know what you might want to do, but I love talking to people and I love growing my network. So I just invite anyone to chew the fat with me about what we've done and how we've done it. We haven't done it all right. We've made mistakes, but I am very happy with where we're at.
Okay, now Cathy, I have to ask you: is chew the fat, is that a British term, or is that a Kiwi term, or where does that come from?
It's like sitting around the campfire with your bottle of beer, talking rubbish, Okay. So that's where we're sort of saying, well, you did it that way. This is my business. Let's just chat about it. Sorry. Yeah.
No,
I forget.
I love it. That's all good. No, that's fantastic. I love learning these new things. So thank you so much for coming on, Cathy. We will link all that up in the show notes, but appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. It really was. Thank you.